Mary Ward's Open Circle, a metaphor for our times. This is a collaborative project for the IBVM Arts Ministry. It arose out of a conversation about living in disruptive times brought on by the coronavirus. The experience, it seemed to me, had similar resonances with the life of Mary Ward. The Open Circle. Among a series of paintings on the life of Mary Ward is one commonly known as the Open Circle or the Circle of Friends. Mary, you can see, is on the far right. She's seen here with young women of Elizabethan times, friends, companions, women making choices that would put them at odds with the expectations for women religious of their day. I imagine them gathering to discuss, consult, discern the way forward. They were moving into uncharted waters, but together, not alone. What might you see in this picture? What does the circle tell you about her vision for women? What strikes you as distinctive about the women? How might the conversation turn on matters such as equality, friendship, diversity? It would be interesting to pop in and listen. Mary Ward herself, who is she? Well, a 16th century English woman from Yorkshire. In history, she would be described as a bold educator, a woman of vision, who foresaw the future education of young women as essential. She not only believed in it at a time when it was not seen as necessary, but found a way of making it happen. Mary was a pilgrim woman. As that, she underwent rigorous journeys, 5 times on foot and carriage over the Italian Alps from England to Rome. And there she was seeking papal approval for her new vision for religious and the education of young women. She was aiming at setting up foundations in England and Europe. That was her dream. Plague and pestilence. Across this dream come a series of major epidemics under the banner of the second wave pandemic occurring in the late 17th century. It is said that plague was present somewhere in Europe every year from 1346 to 1671. Mary, the pilgrim woman, would not have been immune from the dangers of such. She would have experienced the epidemics that ravaged London too 4 times during her lifetime: 1593, 1603, 1625, 1636, each of them killing about 1/5 of the population. So we might ask, how did Mary manage through this ravaging epidemic period? And how might the Open Circle have come to her support in times of illness? We know she often took to the spas in Europe to attend to health issues. War and instability. The 30 Years' War was an international conflict taking place in Northern Europe from 1618 to 1648. And as you can see, that was the time of Mary Ward. It was fought between Catholics and Protestants and drew in the national armies of France, Sweden, Spain, Denmark, and the HAPSBURG dynasty that ruled the whole Roman Empire. Mary was a pilgrim woman, and she would have been 33 when it broke out, and it continued till after her death. Religious conflicts in England between Protestants and Catholics too were boiling over. She would have experienced that. And in so many ways, her dreams for establishing a system of schools across Europe were absolutely thwarted. She had difficult decisions to make because the culture of Catholic Europe at this time had not caught up with her vision, and she was known to say that half women are not for these times. So I wonder, what would the Open Circle have meant for her? You can well imagine it would have been there for Mary. You enter into this picture and imagine the conversations. The open circle today. Yes, imagine the conversations among Mary Ward and her first companions. Lack of historical information about the painting allows my imagination to roam freely. We don't know why this gathering took place, nor where, but we do know it was in 1609, the year that the group set out for Flanders to establish their new mission. The conversation in that case would probably have been future-directed. They were young women with a dream to explore. They could well have been excited about that. At the same time, they would be leaving familiar shores, family and friends, which might have left them emotionally fragile. They would need each other, and as history relates, when scattered and alone later, the memory of these relationships were crucial. So the circle offered them a place of friendship, imagination and inclusion, a place where they could be open with one another, to air their ideas and concerns in trust, and with their leader, Mary Ward, who was described as apt for friendship, a woman who spoke of God in such human terms as parent of parents and friend of all friends. The open circle would be a place to which they would return to re-envision and rebuild, to console and to rejoice with one another, a place where they could be, in fact, merry together. After 400 plus years, we are still singing about being Mary Ward's circle of friends. These times, COVID-19. But what actually is the relevance of the circle image to us in these COVID-19 times? For me, it is because I can identify threads that are common to both her time and our times. Friendship, purpose, togetherness, trust. As we move in a staged way from arrival of the virus to lockdown, to partial return, and then to full return, possibly break out again, we experience a risky range of emotions. We look for ways of steadying ourselves, holding things in balance, helping one another. Every household and person has their own way of achieving this. Some turn to prayer to help them through. Certainly, that was a profound factor in Mary Ward's circle, and for me too. But if we have learnt anything from this experience, we know that as humans we go looking for one another for support and courage, to provide us with a sense that we are simply not on our own. We chat about looking to the end goal when we can get back to some sort of normality. We're open about our state of misery or pleasure or relaxation. We share some beautiful act that has occurred along the way. For me it was when a lovely old man picked a rose for me as I walked along the path. We reach out to one another. We return to these circle of friends from time to time. In ways like these, the open circle has taken on a new meaning for me. For me, the circle has become a metaphor for our times. The circle as metaphor, interlocking circles. As time went on, this metaphor began to grow within me. It widened to include not simply relationships with fellow humans in the circle, but with all created life around me. On my walks, I became more aware of life and beauty, of people I passed on the way, of gardens, of the sky so blue and clear, of recent rain, etc. A new sense of interconnectivity with all created life. The experience was gratitude. At the same time, questions arose within. My responsibilities to the environment and indeed to the planet. What do I need to change in attitude and action to enter this public conversation? The experience was urgency. I was aware of needing to grow more in social consciousness and about matters of justice. Climate change came to mind. The circle was beginning to become an imaginary place where I could invite in like-minded people who cared about these things. This was my open circle, and the experience was good. With everyday news of illness and death, I included all the sick and the dying around the world too, and the medical teams at home and abroad, and frontliners in any essential services. They were all included in my thoughts and prayers. They became part of my image of the circle of gratitude. Well, the global family too, they came into sharp relief. As I woke up each day to more devastation and grief in countries around the world, cities, people everywhere, they all came into my close ambit. The song, "He's Not Heavy, He's My Brother," came to mind. Yes, and sisters everywhere too. In that sense, they were my responsibility, because we are one world family, humans in search of a vaccine to get us through this crisis. The experience was of one humanity, undivided by race, creed, gender. For me, the circle was being enlarged by these real and imaginary circles, but expanded even further when we began to connect through virtual circles. Zooming in and out of others' lives, upskilling, downloading became the order of the day. The connections were real, even if virtual. A new and rich experience brought on by technology, for which I was grateful. But most significant of all, the place I moved most freely was in the circle of the arts, where professionally I have spent my whole life roaming in one way or another, and which I call the circle of my first language. The arts. It is universally accepted that the arts have a place in our lives that no other medium can fill. They confront and challenge, they call us out, they draw us in, they bring joy and freedom, they silence us in awe and wonder. My virtual circle of the arts. During COVID times, I was exposed to galleries opening up their treasures, digital concert halls and theatres streaming performances. I visited spaces that were normally alive with community, but now spaces in waiting for us to return. I was allowed into the backyard of a family performing instrumental music around the clothesline, into home studios and garages transformed for recording. I listened to a chamber choir performing music of the period of Mary Ward. All of the composers on the program, I noted, were survivors of 1, 2 or 3 plagues. One could say that creative artists were out and about in all forms of media, and I loved it. For me, these were transforming experiences of COVID times, graced moments of sheer beauty. My question to you, what was your experience of the arts? Did you too feel grateful for their part in our lives? So from reflecting on this little image, the open circle of Mary Ward, my life across these times has been full of rich experience. The image was a kind of springboard that expanded my heart and soul to see how much good and kindness exists among us. How friendship, purpose, togetherness and trust were all elements of this time. The open circle moves offshore. The open circle painting forms part of a 2-panel work of art. The second panel shows us that life is not contained by a circle, but in fact that we move in and out of circles to enable us to move on. We value the circle and the conversations. We value the expansion of the circle. But now we must set out and take courage from the strength we have been given, as Mary Ward did with her first companions and they with her. Now they were to set out on a rough crossing. We have the feeling that we too are navigating unpredictable times ahead. Perhaps there'll be very rough crossings. Thanks to Mary and friends, I feel we can weather the storm of COVID with some degree of mental and spiritual balance if we keep in mind the lessons of the open circle.